What's going on, YouTube family? Back again. It's been a little while since I got to hang out with you for a little bit. So, going to catch up and put a smile on our face is the hope and the whole idea of this podcast, Good News in Auto Repair. I'm Braxton Critcher, and I've got Elle Lawhead with me. She is with Women in Auto Care. And we're just going to talk about automotive repair, the good things that are happening, and how that pertains to women and auto care. And I have been following the improvement and the growth of women in auto care. And I know Ellie is a little more connected than even I am. So I'm excited to share some of this stuff with you. If you've not subscribed to the podcast channel or the YouTube channel, now is as good a time as any to jump along the journey as we just try to tell stories of people who care about this industry and try to do good things that uplift it. Because I don't know about you, many times when I look around the automotive repair industry, I find people that are negative, people that do things that sometimes disrupt what the industry is trying to do, which is improve. And we're just trying to share good stories because I have found when I share a good story that brightens someone's day and that also often inspires them to do something good with whatever community they're in or industry they're in, if that's automotive repair. So that's what we're going to try to do today with Elle Lawhead. Hey, Ellie, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Braxton. Appreciate you inviting me on. So for you all who do not know, I am the chair of Women in Auto Care. And Women in Auto Care is a community within the Auto Care umbrella. So the Auto Care Association really helped lead auto care and automotive as an industry from the aftermarket for this entire country. They do a fantastic job. Women in Auto Care, we sit as a nonprofit organization under that auto care umbrella. We are truly designed to engage, educate, and empower women within this industry. That's something that I think should bring a smile to everyone's face. You know, females are the minority group within the automotive aftermarket, but we might be small, but we're pretty mighty. And I hope over the next, few minutes here with Braxton, I'm able to kind of talk to you about what we were able to accomplish in 2024 and how excited we are about 25.
Well, Ellie, the thing about me, so my wife and I have been married for about 3.5 years.
All right.
And I was single, living on my own for 5 or 6 years after I, went out of the college space, whatever.
As you were
And
growing up.
I've learned a lot about myself in the short amount of time I've been married. It is short, but when you kind of get into a routine as a man, you sort of let some things just kind of slide in life. And my wife, I'm so thankful for her, Candace. Shout out to her right now, by the way. But I've learned so much about myself. I've become a better person, more thoughtful, I think often more friendly. She's just brought some things out of me that I didn't know were there and needed to improve on. And so I'm thankful for that. And I think that usually women are wired right different than men, and this automotive industry is a male dominated industry more than most industries by a large margin. And usually that's just because of the nature of the business, and this probably will always for the end of time be a male dominated industry. But I think the inclusion of more women is going to make it a better industry because it's made me a better person because women see things from a different perspective and can often be a little nicer when things get tense. It can be a little more cool headed. Tempers aren't going to flare. And so I think the inclusion of women and the growth of women in the industry ultimately is a very, very positive thing. I mean, where do you on that?
Oh, well, I mean, I hope you know that I think it's a fantastic thing. And I think you kind of you hit it on the head of it's any minority group, right? Everybody has a different story to tell. And what's really exciting about women in auto care and what we've been able to bring to the table is a much broader scale, different perspective than a lot of the leadership teams you see out there across the industry. So over the last decade, as more and more females have entered the industry, one of the biggest things that we, as a, I would say, minority group to an extent, right, been able to achieve is there is still just as much competition out there as there always was before between companies. We all have one customer, we're trying to chase the customer, but we realized very quickly within women in auto care that we're better together, and that if I can teach you and you can teach someone else, even if we're across multiple corporations, we're making the aftermarket better. So as a whole, that is the number one objective, is to be able to take care of our customers. And even if you work elsewhere, I want to empower you and I want to educate you. And I think that that's critical. And that's been something that's key within females entering and having a greater presence within this industry is, yes, we're just as competitive, but we also realize that we're better together and we can educate and help each other as a smaller group.
So, by the way, if you're watching or listening to this episode, throughout the episode, I want to hear from you. So, YouTube, hit me up in the comments your thoughts about women in auto care and the growth that we're seeing, other things that we need to improve on. Obviously, there's always those. Also, if you didn't know, Spotify now has a comment section. So, if you're listening on Spotify, you can comment on this video, well, I guess on this podcast episode, and let us know your thoughts about what we're talking about here. So I want you to be included in this. That's what we want, to have a community here with this podcast. So, Ellie, where last time I looked up numbers, the percentage was still real small, and I don't want to say something because I'm sure I'm incorrect on it. So where are we at? How, what's the percentage of women versus men in the industry right now, and what kind of growth did you see last year?
So we don't track it quite as our as well as we would like to. I'll give you a little bit of info to get you to that answer. So we were tracking closer to about 25% prior to the pandemic, and unfortunately the pandemic for women in auto care and for auto care and many industries as a whole, we saw a big drop off in females working. Many women either retired earlier or decided to stay at home. And so over the last couple of years, we've actually had to rebuild, if you will, our growth. So we saw a little bit of a decline. So we're still around that same percentage that we were pre-pandemic, but unfortunately that was a little bit of a hit to us. Now, the biggest piece that I'm more proud of, since we've seen a little bit of a stagnant climb, if you will, is that we've seen more and more women enter into management and leadership positions. So although our percentage as a whole has remained relatively flat because of the decline we saw in the pandemic and where we are today, we have seen more and more female leaders emerge. And so when we look at, for example, our scholarship winners, or we look at our award winners, or we look at all of the things that we have at our disposal within women in auto care, we're seeing more and more females for the Women of the Year being nominated. And that means somebody that's been in the industry for 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. And that's something that for the longest time never occurred. So percentages remain the same. However, more women are entering into that C-suite, the leadership, the director, management, and above.
Do you have percentages on some of those things, like percentage of the 25%, about how many are in leadership or technicians or service advisors? Do you have any numbers like that?
I don't have any off the top of my head, but it's definitely something that Braxton, we should probably have a maybe a spin-off podcast. I think it would
Sure.
be
Hey,
a
I'm
benefit for
down.
us, yeah, to talk through that, because there are a lot of more intelligent and greater experts than me on those percentages that I have spoken to recently, but I don't want to misspeak
Yeah.
either. But we've got it. it is something that we can definitely talk about and kind of understand. Now, one thing that you just mentioned that I think is an industry wide challenge that we need to make sure that we're mindful of is that percentage and pipeline of technicians. So we've always and continue to have a challenge with technicians entering into the aftermarket or the workforce, if you will, and that has continued to decline. Women within that sphere exceptionally the minority group, right? I mean, and you're seeing a lot of women actually exit that technician channel. So I think that's probably an even better sidebar conversation that we can have in the future is ways that within the automotive industry we can try to retain that talent because again, I mean, yeah, we all want the talent to come work at our respective companies or within the technician side wherever it may be, but we've got to do a better job of bringing people in and keeping them. And if they're here, it's a benefit for all of us. So one of the things, just to tease out something I'm extremely proud of that Women in Auto Care does, is we actually are the only group within the auto care umbrella that offers scholarships for those that want to be within this industry. So in the last several years, we've offered about 1.5 million in scholarships to women who want to go to trade school. And so within that last year alone, we did about $425,000. So even though I don't have that percentage for you today, I can tell you that 81 females' dreams were able to come true last year as a result of our sponsors' efforts and those within the Women in Auto Care community being able to come to the table and support that shortage and making sure that technicians, female technicians for that matter, have a home.
You said 81?
81. Yep.
Wow. What is that? Is interest growing in more women trying to get into the industry? How is that?
Interest is growing. So I, over the last, ooh, probably, you realize how quickly you age, as you're within a job for so long. I think for the last 7 years, maybe 6 years, I've been a scholarship reader for University of the Aftermarket Foundation. And then I also do it for Women in Auto Care. And I've been extremely impressed by the number of scholarship entries we've had that have grown from that female audience. So we're seeing growth every single year for women interested in coming on this path. Now, a lot of them, it's interesting. It's kind of bifurcated. So you have those females that this is a passion of theirs and has been a passion of theirs from day one. And then you've got this camp of females that this is a second career for them. Many of them are choosing this path because they got a divorce, something happened, they had an experience where they realized I didn't know when I went into a shop what I needed, and I realized that there's an opportunity to educate women on car parts, and so I want to open up my own shop and be a place that people feel safe and comfortable and coming through. So I kind of bring all that up as something that we're excited about, but it's a growth. You're definitely seeing more and more women interested in trade school.
Right. Right. You know, I I think about, you know, so I'm pretty connected with Lucas Underwood, and he does not currently employ um a woman at his shop, but I remember a year or two ago, this woman, she recently left. She was there for a couple years, but I remember the camaraderie in the front of the shop being, I felt a little more friendly, homey, maybe. And it seemed to me like when she left, and it may have been just because she left, and anytime somebody leaves, they leave a hole, right? You can't replace that hole sometimes. But it felt like she was just the perfect fit for what he was trying to accomplish there at the front of his business. And it's like that piece is missing right now. And I wonder how many women out there could be the missing piece for whatever business, whether that's a technician role or anything in the automotive repair, because they've never really considered it. And that I always think about that. And Lucas can tell you stories about, what kind of a worker she was and how great of an employee and how friendly she was to people that came in the door. What kind of stories have you heard or can you tell about success stories of women in the industry and things like that? Because I think telling those kind of stories of how this has gone well for so many women almost invites more women to consider it, because it's not so, like, most I feel like most women don't wake up and say, I think I'm going to try and get into automotive repair today. Like, that probably doesn't come up.
Yeah.
But the few that I have encountered that have, I would think would say this was a huge plus for my life and my career. And the industry is becoming so much more accepting and inclusive of women. It's like a match that sometimes women don't even know is there. So, I mean, do you have stories that you might could share of successes and positive things that have happened lately?
Oh, definitely. So, few things. One, and you're going to hear me say it now, and the more you and I speak, you'll probably hear me repeat myself. But the question that I ask every large group that I'm with within Women in Auto Care is I ask the audience, and most recently at the breakfast that we had that had over 300 people at Apex, it was please raise your hand if you did not choose the automotive industry as your career path. And and it's usually about 85%
Oh
of
yeah,
that room that
right.
raises their hand. And and then the follow up is please raise your hand if you feel that you are going to remain in the automotive or you love the automotive industry and you think it's, we're fantastic or whatever, and at 100%, right? Raise their hand. And it's so impactful just that alone for everybody to look around and realize I got here by chance, or I had a friend, or, and I didn't choose this path, and now I'm never going to leave.
Yeah.
And so at the base level, we have a recession-proof industry
Right.
that, well, first and foremost, right? We have a purpose, and if the pandemic didn't teach us anything, yes, we are not those that are medical professionals, right? Saving lives, but we are making it possible for people to save lives. So that's, part two. And so, you've mentioned a little bit today about, the perspective of a female coming in and some of that to me, there was nothing more powerful and impactful for me during the pandemic than realizing every single day I'm going to come to work or I'm going to be on some call with my peers within the automotive aftermarket through Women in Auto Care and realize that everything we're doing is making a difference and allowing hopefully multiple many lives to be saved. So that's just, anecdotally a happy story. I'll tell you for myself, I have worked at AutoZone for 9 years now. I would have never picked this path. This was not where I was going to go. I wanted, and I did work in retail. I wanted to travel the world and be a buyer. And I had a very good friend from college that kept telling me, "What I do, you want to do. I promise." I was like, "I don't think so. I don't think." And ultimately, I met with people from AutoZone, immediately realized how incredible the culture was. So, we talk about the culture within the automotive aftermarket. AutoZone is an extremely great example of that. I'm biased, of course, and we. Sorry, I'm about to get kicked out of this room, Braxton. Just so you know. And so I came, and day one, I was like, "This is the right place for me." Well, since then, I have moved up, and I'm a director at this point in time, and I'm the only female director within the sphere of merchandising that I work in at the category level. And so I've been honored and excited that I've had the opportunity to grow and expand and do what I've been able to do. And there are hundreds and thousands of examples just like mine that exist, but I'm getting kicked out of this room. So I don't know Braxton, from a timing standpoint, if I need to, can we
I mean,
follow
hey,
up?
we'll keep recording while you move if you want to.
Okay,
It'll be a first on Good News and Auto
let
Repair.
me try to find
Relocation
a
in the middle of
spot.
an episode recording. This is
Right,
fun.
I'm gonna mute myself so I can see if I can find another room. Okay.
Sure, go for it. Yeah.
Well, I might get kicked out of this room as well, so
Hilarious.
we're gonna make it work. So that was my story, and I'm gonna there. I've got many, right? But there are some that I don't want to speak for certain people, but one of my good friends and the vice chair of Women in Auto Care, Kathleen Callahan, who is an incredible human being. I think she's an excellent example of a true success story. She worked within her shop with her husband, got a divorce, ended up owning, she now owns, she is a shop owner. You may have talked to her in the past.
Connected once.
Okay. Well, Kathleen is one that I look up to her, and I aspire to have the level of empathy that she has, and the perspective she has. I had the opportunity with Missy from Auto Care to go and visit her shop this summer, and you talked about your friend Lucas, and how Lucas lost a little bit of that homey atmosphere when he lost the female owner shop. So Kathleen went from not knowing a lot about this industry, coming in, owning a shop. She now, you walk in her shop, and they do monthly swag items for those that are coming in, so her customers feel like they're a part of something already. Is it a coffee mug, whatever it may be? So
Right.
she's has that personal touch. Well,
Yep.
then you expand to, she single-handedly, and I say that, but truly, there, it's a village, right? There are many other auto care team members within Women in Auto Care and whatnot, has helped grow drastically the shop owner presence within Women in Auto Care. We now, as chair and vice chair, have intentionally created content within Women in Auto Care for shop owner education. Kathleen was able to go to DC to speak to a myriad of leadership team members within Washington, D.C. She spoke on behalf of Right to Repair. She got to interview Erin Andrews. She is a mentor for a handful of shop owners. And so you think about success of, you started here and her world has grown, and she has changed. I think I can say confidently hundreds of lives. And it's all because she was given a yes by one person to start a shop, and then her confidence has grown, and now she has, been able to be as successful as she possibly can from a leadership perspective, and then as a shop owner. So I give you two different, the corporate change, and then you've got from a shop owner side, and there again hundreds and hundreds of those examples as well.
Yeah. So, there's probably women watching or listening now, or a guy whose girlfriend, fiance, or wife, they may be in a different career right now and are considering a change. Kind of go back in time for you when your friend was trying to talk to you about the industry and you were like, I don't know. Like, what kind of advice do you share to people now that are kind of teetering the fence of whether to or not to join the industry? I mean, you kind of have shared why you should, but it's scary. It's,
Right.
even if you hear like a success story, you still think of, well, that's them. That may not be me. What do you say to somebody who's thinking about joining?
So there, I'm going to answer your question with kind of giving a background, if that's okay. So one of the things that I'm pretty proud of that I do now because of what you just asked me was within Women in Auto Care, AutoZone, and other companies. I realized very quickly my life could have been a lot different, and I could have been a lot more confident had I learned about automotive and anything from car care, maintenance, whatever it may have been, at a young age. And so that's the first bit of advice I always tell people, and it not necessarily advice, but hey, it is never too late to join the automotive aftermarket. And then you can pay it forward, if you will, and educate others on the automotive industry as a whole. So one, we actually now educate Girl Scouts every single year. We do it at high schools, across the country on, hey, these are what the dash lights mean. This is what, when your blinker flashes, makes the noise really quickly, that's what that means. And so that's about confidence in education. And I say the same thing to people that are like how I was, right? Pretty biased about it's automotive aftermarket, it's car parts. There's a lot of men, they're going to know more than me because they work on cars. That's ridiculous.
No,
It,
that I
it,
mean,
it's
I think a lot of women feel that way,
it,
is
it, a
it's
lot do.
intimidating and they're
It
gonna
is
take advantage
intimidating.
of me.
Yes. And it's what so background on, I've always been someone that since I was a kid at my schooling, they taught me to speak publicly, right? I was never a nervous speaker. Well, I got into AutoZone. I couldn't hold a piece of paper without it shaking, right? Because I was so nervous because it was exactly what you just said. I allowed my insecurities, if you will,
Mhm.
to outweigh the confidence that I had, right, my whole life as far as just being able to speak in public. So what I quickly realized and what one of my mentors told me was, look, we all do the same thing every morning. We put on something that has one hole on the top and two holes on the bottom, and they're called pants.
Unless you
So if
unless you do wear a dress, but that's a
okay,
good
and it
analogy. That's a good
proverbial
analogy.
pants, right? No, but the reality was, it's about having passion, having your stuff together, and being willing to put in the work to learn the job. And if you do those things, you also have to know that you don't need to fight for a seat at the table. You have a seat at the table. And so for me, the thing that I always echo to people is, look, it's an industry. So within an industry, you've got supply chain, you've got marketing, you've got merchandising, you have global sourcing, you have legal, you have audit, you have finance, I mean, technicians, I mean, you can own a shop. Like, it is truly an industry that you can do whatever you majored in school and achieve success. And so to me, don't let the bias of us being called the automotive aftermarket dissuade you from coming, because if you went to school and you have your CPA, you can still work at any of these major companies. And you also have the financial stability because we're recession proof. If you're someone that, like me, wanted to enter into a world that is not recession proof, which is soft goods and fashion, you were going to go into the wrong path. Automotive, it's the exact same thing. It's consumer buying behavior. You're getting to make decisions on what people buy, but ultimately it's substantially more beneficial because this is about stuff that people need in order to survive, to go to work, or most importantly for me as a parent, it's my ability to go from home or from work to pick up my kids from school
Yeah.
or to drop them off or whatever it may be. Don't you want to be a part of an industry like that? So that's usually the spiel I give. And it's, again, it's all a matter of whatever job you take, it's becoming proficient in your field and knowing your stuff. So if you're a buyer for batteries, know batteries. If you work at a a manufacturer, you have to know the manufacturing process. If you're in finance, your lane's going to remain finance and you're okay. But the automotive industry has something for everyone. And that's exciting to me.
Yeah. So, I think you sort of just alluded to it, but not talked about it a bunch. But it's still early 2025. What is kind of on the plan? What are you guys looking forward to this year? And w- if someone is trying to get into the industry, that woman listening or watching right now, how can they get in touch? And you talked about scholarships and other training programs. So kind of
Oh, yeah.
in order, but what's coming up and how can someone get in touch?
We've got all the things happening. So February 17th through the 20th is the annual Women in Auto Care Conference that's going to be in Atlanta this year. So for those that are interested in coming to our conference, it is a full day jam packed education session and leadership. So we've got a keynote speaker, we have a handful of panel discussions, and then there's going to be networking. One of the biggest pieces of that conference, outside of getting to know peers, being educated, ROI, right, for your own companies to be able to come back and say, hey, I know this about this trend, or hey, I know this about emerging technology, is we actually have a gala. You call it a gala, it's a fancy dinner, if you will, but there's an auction, and the auction is tied directly to raising money for our scholarship funds. Last year we raised $84,000. So biggest, most, upcoming is our conference. Immediately following that, and throughout the next 12 months, we have a virtual event. It's called Empower Half Hour. Every single month, we also have a handful of connection circles. And so those connection circles are done virtually. It's a way to connect with like-minded women within the industry. So we have shop owner circle, we have diesel technician circle, we have HR circle, we have balancing act circle, and in all of that information that I'm saying very quickly can be found on the Auto Care website within the Women in Auto Care segment. And if you are a member of Auto Care, you just need to register, and then you automatically can become a member of Women in Auto Care. So that is a big deal for us, and something that you quickly can do. Beyond
Ho
that,
Just real quick, how much does it cost to be a member?
the cost is going to vary by company, incorporation, and size. So all of that's going to be through the Auto Care website. But if you are a Braxton, you work for X company, say you work for Napa, Napa is an Auto Care member, or so as a result of that, you as an individual contributor don't have to pay
Right, okay.
extra. So it's twofold, right? So one, make sure that if you're part of a larger company providing to Auto Care and you're a member, then you have no, from an individual contribution standpoint, pay. Now for the conference, if you are an Auto Care member, the conference fee is $595. And so all of that is on the website,
And we'll
as
put a
well. But
link in the show notes
perfect,
description of the video,
perfect.
it'll be there.
Awesome. But we're excited about all of that. And then beyond, as we continue to traverse this calendar year, Apex next year, we're going to have some updates to how we do our awards. We're going to elevate the award ceremony further, more to come that I'm not allowed to share today, but ultimately we did 9 awards this past year, over 100 females and a handful full of companies were submitted or nominated. Those are unique nominations based upon the overwhelming number of nominations and the overwhelming number of support that we got, as far as 300 plus people to come to our breakfast. You're going to see us elevate what our A awards look like, kind of do a little bit of changes, and then that stage will be elevated as well. So that's something that I'm really, really looking forward to in the future.
And, getting in touch, I guess they just go to the website
Yep.
and reach out that way?
We also have LinkedIn, we have all the social media,
Yep.
Facebook, Instagram, all of that is on Women in Auto. Our social media team does an incredible job making sure that they're getting communications out there. Outside of all of that, if you go and when, not if, you go to the Auto Care website and you register, if you are not registered, you can subscribe to receive our emails. So our emails will also, I send out an email every single month. Within that email, it's going to allow you access, if you have not registered for any of the connection circles, for any of the monthly Empower half hours, whatever may come up during that time frame. Women in Auto Care also has presence at Fall Leadership Days and at our Spring Connect Week, that our being Auto Cares. So we have those in person stages, if you will, as well.
Well, this is really good news.
Awesome.
Thanks for sharing, Ellie.
Of course. Happy to.
And again, listening, watching, please hit subscribe, or most importantly, I think, is to share the video, share the podcast with your friends, talk about it on social media as well. If you see any videos of ours, hit share as well on those, and we'll get more people to hear about what is happening that's good in the industry, and today specifically, women and their growing influence and growing role in this automotive repair industry. So, thanks for checking out Good News in Auto Repair.